Hello friends, I hope you're all doing great. This YouTube video is going to be about the gamification aspects of Drive Fitness. So lately I've been very focused on the workout programs and getting some example workout programs built into the app. And we finally got that all worked out. So if you haven't checked out my last video about our new workout programs, please go to our channel and check that out. But now that I have that all squared away, and there are some programs for you to follow when you get into the app, I wanted to go over the whole gamification aspect of the app, because I personally think that the way our app gamifies exercise is one of the most unique things about it. And yeah, I've been really excited to make this video for a long time, but it's just obviously very important that we had a functional program for you guys to follow before we got all excited about the point system. So in the app, you get points for every set you do of an exercise. Those points are called gains. So I've entered in 4 sets into this workout. And if you see on the right side, right over here, we get gains or points for each set. So 100 by 5, we got 19 gains. 200 by 5 should obviously be more, so we got 33. But then we did 100 by 10, and that's 21. It's kind of unclear, why am I getting more points for doing 200 by 5 rather than 100 by 10? Like, who's to say which set was better, right? Well, I am to say, and I have a whole complicated equation that explains why you get those points. So I'm going to dive into the equation that gives you points, but I do just want to say, if you don't really care, or if you just trust me that it makes sense, then you don't have to watch this. I made it so complicated that you would never know, because I do feel like it might be kind of fun to like figure it out. Some games are so complicated, and you don't really need to understand the point system to enjoy it, right? Like, obviously, if you work out more, you're gonna get more points. That's like the baseline philosophy behind the point system, right? If you work out once a week, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, you're not gonna get as many points as the guy who's working out 7 times a week. If you work out more weight and reps, obviously you're gonna get more points. So what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing wrong with using this app and not understanding the equation and just kind of leaving like the magic up to the app, you know? But for those of you who are like, dude, what the hell? Why I need to know why I'm getting these points. This video is going to explain it in depth. So I don't know. I'm going to cancel this workout and just kind of go over a couple things points wise in the app. For those of you who don't know, you have your level over here in your profile page, and then this will show you how many points out of the next requirement of points you need to get to that level. So kind of standard, but the points are not just like a random number, right? You'll go through each level. So the first thing I'm going to go over is just like quickly those levels, right? This is my Excel sheet or my Google sheet on the levels. This basically just shows how many gains you need in total to get to this next level, and then how many gains just within that level. We get to level 2 if we get 50, but then we need 150. And then 300. So it kind of starts duplicating, and there's 100 levels here, and they start to get like harder and harder and harder, right? So just like any game, you're going to start leveling up very fast. Like, I'm probably on level 4 or 5. I haven't really done anything. And then eventually, you know, it's going to slow down, and you're going to need thousands of points or like tens of thousands of gains, you know, to get from level 91 to 92, right? At one point I had 40 levels in here in the previous version, and now there's 100. So hopefully it won't ever slow down too much where it's not fun. Obviously it gets harder, but yeah, I set up 100 levels in there so that it's more fun. I can always add more too. This is my gains calculator when doing a strength training exercise, right? It's super complicated, but I'm gonna break it down. The first thing that it's gonna do when you enter in your set is it's gonna take your weight and turn it into a 1 rep max. And this all like is plug and chug. I can plug exercises into here and it'll work. So right now, if you did 135 by 10, it thinks that your 1 rep max would be about 179. So that makes sense. Let me do a different value in here. If you can do 185 by 10, it thinks you can do 246 would be a 1 rep max. So that's just an equation that I found online. There's several variations of it, but it's a simple equation. When I'm trying to figure out how many points you should get for each set, the first thing I gotta do is equalize all of the rep counts. You know what I'm saying? How does 5 reps compare to 2 reps, or 10 reps compare to 8 reps? Like, which one of those is more, right? If I go back over here to those points that I had right here, right? How do you even draw that comparison between these different rep counts? So that's the first way that we start to equalize things, which is this equation that puts everything into a 1 rep max, right? For starters. Okay, now the next thing I use is something called the Wicks coefficient. So I'm gonna open this up. Is a formula, and it can be used to measure like the strength of one person against the other person. And so this takes into account your body weight versus someone else. I was trying to like think of an equation myself where, okay, maybe the amount of the 1 rep max you have divided by your body weight, that's how many points you should get, right? But then I was running into these issues where, well, what if someone weighs 300 pounds, you know, then they're never gonna get any points in my game. So I needed basically like a very long equation that would take a lot of factors into account. And so here, I'm gonna move myself. It's got different coefficients for men and female. Very in-depth equation, right? Like this goes all the way to like x to the 5th that takes into account your body weight and then allows you to compare yourself against other people. The first thing that we did was equalize a 2 rep compared to an 8 rep. Now we're trying to compare a man who weighs 120 pounds to a man who weighs 115 pounds. Now we got to create a fair system that puts those 2 people on the same playing field. And we have to take into consideration if it's a man or a female. This equation does both of those 2 things for us. It equalizes body weight in the most precise way I could find possible, and it distinguishes if you're a man or a woman. Apparently I've been pronouncing it wrong. The Wilks, not the Wicks, the Wilks equation looks like on a graph. So you can just kind of see right here, this is like someone who weighs 60 pounds. Right here, this is someone who weighs 170 pounds. So basically, the more you weigh, the lower value you're gonna get, but it's not just a straight decrease line. It's gonna slowly kind of decrease, and each one of those to the 4th to the 5th values you see, it changes that line just ever so slightly. But what that does is it actually takes into account all these different ranges of weights, and it takes into account the outliers as well. So now we're going back to my equation. This person, I have entered in 170 pounds as their weight. The Wicks coefficient equation that I'm using uses kilograms. So the first thing we have to do is turn their body weight into kilograms. That's a simple equation. But then we have the Wicks coefficient equation, which is very complicated. And that uses all of these values over here, right? Which are the ones I have on this page. Once that's calculated out, we're gonna get the Wicks value. We're gonna multiply that coefficient times their 1 rep max after that's also converted to kilograms. To get you a better feel for what this means, if this person was weighing 170 pounds, their coefficient, and that's like how heavy their 1 rep max is being weighed, is 0.7. So let's say instead of that, they weighed 200 pounds. Now their Wicks coefficient is 0.64. So the heavier you weigh, the lower that your points are going to get weighted. But not obviously in a straight linear line, right? It's going to be a very complicated and precise equation that we're using. So we could try to throw in a weird value like 300. That's just 0.56. So that jumped about the same between 170 and 200 as 200 and 300. And if you weigh very little, like 100 pounds, 1.14. As accurately as possible, we're taking into consideration people's weight. This is actually pulling from all the male values over here. So I made a little equation down here just to show you the female values. For a man that's weighing 100 pounds, his coefficient is 1.14, but a female weighing 100 pounds, taking into account these numbers, they're going to be weighted 1.38. So you're going to get more points if you're a female lifting. Obviously, you deserve more points if you weigh the same amount as a man, but you're lifting the same amount as him. If you're 150 pounds, right, a man is going to be 0.77 and a female is going to be a 1.01. If you're 350 pounds, your coefficient is going to be 0.55 if you're a man and 0.77 if you're a female. We have taken into consideration the reps you are doing, equalizing that all down to a 1 rep max count. We are taking into consideration your man or female, and we have a pretty precise equation of calculating based on which gender you are and how much your body weight is, how heavily we should weigh your 1 rep max points. Now we get to the final part of the equation. At first, the way it would work is if this exercise is a chest exercise, you are going to get X amount of chest points. And I show you in the app the breakdown of all your different muscle groups and how much points they get. However, when you're using chest, you're also using your shoulders and your triceps. So we're going to do 3 different calculations for most exercises: your primary muscle group and your secondary muscle groups. So I'm going to jump over to the exercise table, right? We have this huge database of exercises. This is your forearms, your biceps, cardio, abs, chest. And then I have a joint table right here, right? These are your secondary muscle group tables, right? So every exercise usually has about 1, unless it's isolated exercise. But a lot of them have 2 different secondary muscle group joint tables. For this exercise that we're calculating is exercise number 1. If we go to the exercise table, this is flat barbell chest press, right? Oh, okay, good. This is the one. Oh no, we were doing dumbbell. So this is barbell. We're gonna see that it joins up with shoulders and it joins up with triceps. Cool, okay. The code in the back end obviously does all this, but that's how we populate these 2, right? These secondary muscle groups. So if it was a back exercise, one of these would probably be biceps. Bicep curls that doesn't use anything other than your biceps, you're not going to get any secondary muscle points, right? Doing compound workouts or exercises is going to get you more points. If it was just isolated, it would only have this primary one. Each of these is going to get multiplied by the difficulty. Each exercise in the database has a difficulty. This one is a beginner. And so I have this page over here for gain multipliers. Each of your muscle groups is weighted a little differently, and then for the difficulty you're going to get weighted heavier if it's expert or intermediate than if it's beginner. So for this beginner exercise it's going to be a 0.2, and then if it was intermediate, 0.5. We're not going to weigh those secondary muscles as much as the primary one. So these secondary muscles, they're only going to be able to earn like half the amount of points as the primary one. So that's why for difficulty, these are all getting weighted 0.2. Significance, right? This is getting a 1 because it's primary. These are both getting 0.5s because they are secondary. Then I'll go over these in a moment, but you're going to get weighted for what muscle group you are. So obviously chest is bigger than your shoulders, which are weighted 0.6, and then these triceps, which are weighted 0.4. So I told you, it's complicated. You take all of these into account, you're getting the multiplier for this muscle. The amount of gains is this multiplier, then multiplied by that W value, which is your Wick's coefficient times your 1 rep max in kilograms. And then that gets you the amount of gains or points for this muscle. And you do it again. We're getting a little over 12 points in our chest, 3.6 points for our shoulders, 2.4 points for our triceps. So if you think about it, right, you're mostly using your chest. That's why you're getting about 4 or 5 times as many points for your chest than your shoulders or your triceps, okay? It's not like an exact science because I think you probably use your triceps a little more than your shoulders when you do bench press. But for right now, this is as exact as I can get with these 2 secondary. Maybe eventually I'd have like a secondary and a tertiary muscle group attached to each exercise, and so treat some of them a little differently. Because the goal is to get this as like precise as possible over time so that 30, 40 years from now, it's such an exact science. Maybe every single exercise that exists has a different equation that takes all these different factors into account. You take these 3 numbers, right, add them up. Basically, the last thing is that if this is a new record, so for this rep count, if you haven't done more weight than it, it's just gonna give like an extra 5. It's taking in these 3 numbers, which should be about 18 points. And then since this was a new record, it's just going to add 5. All these scenarios are going to assume that you're a male and that this, for some reason, was a new record. If you were weighing 185 and you did 185 by 10, you're getting 27 points. But if you weighed 115, doing the same thing, you're getting 38 points. Now, if you're weighing 115 though, and you are actually lifting how much you probably can, like 85 pounds, you're getting about 20 points. Someone who's weighing 115 probably is, they're probably doing hopefully 95 pounds. and they're getting about 22 points. And the dude who's weighing like 190, and he's lifting 185 by 10, he's getting 27 points. Okay, so he's getting a little more, but he's probably only doing that 7 times. 25. As best as possible, I'm trying to take into account all these different factors, pull them together. How difficult is the exercise? How much do you weigh? How big is this muscle group compared to the other muscle groups? And just so you guys know, the last version of the app, the equation was every set you get 5 points, new records you get 10 points. So it's so simple compared to this. And that's why at the beginning of this episode, I said, you don't really have to watch this. You don't really have to understand. As long as you know that I put some thought into it, then you can trust it and enjoy the game. As best as possible, I am trying to account for everything that's going on and gamify that experience for you. It makes the app special, and what it's going to continue to make it special is that over time, we are going to keep getting this more precise and more precise. You probably don't use your shoulders the exact same amount as your triceps. So over time, for every exercise, it might have a unique equation to it. And, I don't know. There's endless possibilities here, right? But I really want to, down to the T, gamify the entire experience for you. And so these are the weighted values for strength training. Glutes, upper legs, back, and chest were all 1, and then shoulders and abs 6. Lower legs and triceps 0.4, biceps also 0.4, and then forearms 0.2. And my thought process was like, okay, you should get less points for biceps than for chest. And in theory, it made sense. It ended up you would get way, way more chest points than like a bicep curl because you're already doing like 180 pounds on the chest press and like 50 on the bicep curl. So this is my real account. I've been using this for about a week or two now with like my real data that I do in the gym. By the way, if you want to look at this view, if you go to exercise library and if you click the see all, it'll give you a breakdown of all your different muscle groups, right? Like if you click chest, this is going to give you a breakdown of just your chest. But if you want to see how you're doing like overall, this is going to give you a good breakdown. Look how little points I have for triceps and biceps. I'm going to swipe to this one. This is only like a week or two. I have 185 gains for chest. And then biceps, I only have 18 gains. And that's because 180 or like at least 150 pounds on the chest press. And then I'm doing like 30s or 35s on the bicep curls. Then on top of that, I'm taking that chest that does like 150 pounds and I'm giving it the weight of 1. And I'm taking my biceps, which are already doing like 30 pounds, giving it the weight of 0.4. So I was taking into account something that's already like a naturally happening. I don't really need to give chest a bigger weight because for most people, like chest already can do more weight. I guess for now, I'm going to change all these to just be 1. So I'm either going to weight them all the same or make it a very little difference. Shoulders and abs 0.9, triceps and biceps weighted like 0.8, and then forearms 0.7. I might do this actually. I'm going to talk to Dramazos, see what he thinks. There's probably only like one person watching this YouTube video at this point. So honestly, if you're the person that cares, like let me know and I will take your opinion into consideration. I'm not really sure yet, but it's too extreme right now. This is just too extreme. You should have more chest and you should have more back and upper legs points, not by this margin. So I need to close that gap. I wanted to go over this on this video because I want to show you how I'm like constantly tweaking this equation. I'm like really excited because so far it's just me. Like I'm the input. I'm looking at my own data being like, oh, this doesn't really add up, to what I thought it did. But what's going to be cool is when I have like 100 users, instead of looking at my points over a week, I'm going to be looking at 100 people's data over a year. Why use Tom's app now? Not perfected yet. If you help me out now, it's just going to make this equation get better and better and better. And like, it's going to evolve into this crazy cool like point system. You're going to help give me that feedback and you're going to help me perfect this super game. It's going to blow people's minds, dude, like 30 years from now when this game, it makes real like activities you do as important as those little achievements and points and bullshit that you do in video games. I hope this connected some dots for people who are like, why? It's a video game? Like, what do you mean by points? You don't ever question why this video game is giving you 10 points for harvesting wood or 100,000 points for beating the boss. But some dude just made those numbers up. In like World of Warcraft, you're going to go mine some materials and shit and get little like tiny little points. And then you're going to do a bunch of big things that give you bigger points like in Drive Fitness. So little bicep curls and chest presses are going to be your small points. And then it's going to build into big records that you set and these big milestones and evolve into this the line between video games and real life are going to blur to the point where you're just like motivated like you've never been before. This is the calculator for running, which is a little bit more simple, so it shouldn't take me that long to explain it. You get an MET score. Walking is gonna have a low MET score, and then something like playing contact football is gonna have a high MET score, right? It's just basically the metric of intensity training or something like that. Right now, we only have running, and I liked running because this equation right here, it takes into account like how fast you were running. It gives you a pretty specific MET score for that. So miles per hour. So let's say you ran 1 mile in 10 minutes. Your miles per hour would be 6 miles per hour. You would run 6 miles in an hour. So, oh yeah, okay. So if you ran 1 mile in 10 minutes, then your miles per hour would be 6. That then funnels into your MET score because it takes X into account right here. If a different person, they ran 1 mile in 20 minutes, they would probably get about half as many points because their miles per hour. We can also substitute this out if eventually we start taking other things into consideration, like my girlfriend wants to do rollerblading or someone who's doing biking. I can probably get a slightly different equation for all of those because I shouldn't compare someone who's biking to running. So right now we just have running, but I'm excited to add in like more activities that you can do cardio wise, and I kind of have the equation set up to incorporate, different activities. So you get your MET score, which is taking into account how fast you're going. Basically, for cardio, I'm just giving you points based on how many calories you're burning. Your MET score times 3.5 times your body weight in kilograms. Divide that by 200 and multiply that by how many minutes. This, once again, it evens out players on body weights. We don't differentiate between male and female, but obviously that's not as important with running as it is with strength training. It makes perfect sense to me that the more calories you burn, the more points you should get. I think I'm just taking that number, dividing it in 2 plus the minutes. So say if you walk for like an hour, you're probably not going to hit enough points for that time that you spent. So I want to make sure the time you're putting into it. Same thing, if you run like 2 miles in 10 minutes, you're going to get a bunch of calories burnt, but you weren't working out for as long. So if you weigh 185 and you did half a mile in 1 minute, okay, that's boring. Let's say you did a whole mile and you did it in 10 minutes. Well, then you're burning 140 calories, and I'm dividing that by 2 and then adding how much minutes you did, which was 10. So you get 80 gains. So I should probably take away like this divide by 2 thing right here, because I feel like, what did that person get, like 20 gains for a set they did? They only have to do like 4 sets to equal out how much you did. Oh, but it's 10 minutes. So, I mean, if you're only running for 10 minutes, you can't expect to get that many points. Let's say you did 3 miles in 23 minutes. Here you're getting like 240 points. So my friend who runs pretty often, he usually does about 4 miles in a half hour. So he's getting about 300 points. Those people were getting about 25 points per weight training set, because I want these to be even. So 300 divided by 25, 12. Yeah. So someone who's doing about 12 strength training sets is going to be equal to someone who ran for 30 minutes. That seems about fair. But especially when it comes to comparing the strength training to the cardio, I'm going to need a lot of data. I can't just judge based on my own numbers. So I would really want several people testing cardio for me, several people doing strength training, and a couple people who are trying to do both. And let me know if all the cardio people are just skyrocketing on the leaderboard, then I got to change this equation some. For strength training, every record is just set on your rep. For each exercise, you have like a 1 rep record, a 2 rep record, 3 rep record. And then I couldn't give you like a record for every minute of cardio that you do. So we have them split out into zones of 5. If you are doing 32 minutes, if you did like 33 or 34 minutes, it's going to compare that pace to your other paces at that moment. If you ran for 22 minutes and then you ran for 40 minutes, those are 2 different records. But if you ran for 22 minutes and then you ran for 24 minutes, you're only going to get that new record if that 24 minutes is at a faster pace than the 22 minutes, if that makes sense. Thank you so much for sitting through this video. I'm sure there's like one of you left, so I really appreciate you. But anyways, this is how we calculate points. It's probably weird and boring unless you're specifically into this, but if you are still here at this point in the video and you have any feedback for me, or you want to give me your 2 cents on the point system, or just tell me, good job, Tom, I appreciate your YouTube videos, I'm here for it. Drive Fitness. Peace.